Welcome everyone to today's episode. So we're going to get a little controversial today.
Ooh,
Not in specifics and in details, but in overview thinking. Hi, I'm JJ Flazanes. This is my show. I'm going to talk, and I have with me today one of my favorite guests in the whole wide world, probably my favorite guest, although really more of my favorite person, more than my favorite podcast guest, and that of course would be Mr. Doug Sandler.
I fit into a lot of categories. I love that. I love that. R-rated, X-rated. What are we doing here?
I don't know. Probably are. There might be. I don't know if there'll be any cuss words, but who
Fuck
knows?
yeah.
Exactly. All right. So
Let's
we
do
did a
it.
video in case you're here on the podcast. Come on over to jjfilzanes.tv if you want to see this conversation. But I wasn't going to touch this with a 10-foot pole, this conversation of politics, but we're going to do it because we're going to do it from a more broader sense of, or at the same time, sort of the underbelly. Like I'm gonna bypass the details and I'm going to go a little above and to the depth of what's really going on in the framework of pivoting and in the framework of when life makes you pivot. And right now, politics is asking you to pivot. And maybe it's not. Maybe for some of you, it's not at all. But I would guess that regardless of who you voted for, if you voted at all, something, either the environment, the people around you, COVID made you pivot or ask you to pivot. So let's take a step back for a second for those of you that might be new here on YouTube, because I had one of those really strong SEO words that might have got you curious
Ooh.
by using politics in this title. But in the law of attraction world, and pivoting isn't just law of attraction. Most people who do business understand the word pivot. We talked about a lot during 2020 and 2021 about what happens when something happens in your life that you didn't expect, that you don't like, that you don't want, and you all of a sudden are left with, what do I do now? And pivoting is how you do it both physically as well as emotionally and spiritually and mentally and all the things that go into that. So what I want to talk about today was what's going on, but in relationship to then bring it back to how do we handle contrast and how do we handle our emotions and our lives. And so Doug and I were kind of talking a little bit before we started recording about different times in our lives where we've had to pivot and we weren't necessarily ready for it. We didn't really want it. We didn't really like it, but we've had to do it. So do you have any stories off the top of your head right now, Mr. Sandler, to
I just
share?
remember when you started talking about when life makes you pivot, make pivot aid. I mean, I guess that's what you do. Man, so many different parts of my life where pivots weren't expected, anticipated, or even wanted. Personally, with a marriage that broke up, professionally with a career that pivoted on a dime, yeah, overnight. A live event business completely dried up. From a time when I was trying to make a transition out of my DJ business into as a full-time podcaster into that business too. That was more of a pivot that was anticipated, but still, you don't know what you got when the pivot is happening. You just know where you want to be. You have no idea how you're going to get there. So many things that we can talk about. I'm excited to be able to have this conversation with you and your community too.
So I've had to pivot and and I want to talk about that and kind of what I've pivoted to by the end of this conversation. But I was trying to not touch this subject. I know how heated it is. It was like during COVID. I kept my mouth shut during COVID for a long time until I finally didn't want to keep my mouth shut any longer because I was trying to find other people who saw the situation the same way I did. And I want to start off with just an understanding of, again, I call it the anatomy of emotion, but it's understanding why you feel the way you feel. And right now, a lot of people have a lot of feelings. Well,
Politically.
what are you saying?
Right.
Politically?
Politically, I think, yeah, you're right. A lot of people have a lot of feelings. I look at Facebook, which is something I'm going to do a lot less right now because, I mean, there is so much anger and there's so much frustration that goes on social media. And, it's just an energy that I don't want to be around. I don't need to be around it. So why be around it?
Right. And you're a little more neutral. Would that be
Yeah,
accurate in terms of,
absolutely.
right? Okay. Well, there are a lot of people in the world that aren't neutral at all. They're very vehemently one side or another side. And I want to talk a little bit about how that happens and why that happens, because it's going to be applicable to the moment right now. And then also to you personally, or how we personally can take that same energy on a smaller scale.
Yep.
It gets to be really, it's ominous when it's many, many people. We share an energetic field with many people in our environment. And so when half of the planet or more is angry or fearful, I don't care how strong you are at being able to live in a different reality, because I'm really good at it. After a while, it's hard. It's hard to do that because if you have, so let's talk about COVID and let's talk about just the idea, not the current state of the world and
Right.
laws around this, but
Right.
abortion. I just want to give this as an example. Let's talk about abortion as an example.
Oh, you were hitting, but hold on a second, and we can go down there in just a quick second. But you hit on a really interesting topic, which was COVID, and I was assuming that you were going to start going down the path of when they come to knock on my door to tell me I must have a vaccine or something like that. I don't know where you
No,
were going,
I'm
but
not, no, I'm not going to get specific.
got it. Okay,
I'm going to
okay,
say general
got it.
because it doesn't matter what I believe or want.
I
It ma
agree. I
right?
agree. I agree. Yeah,
Because I'm not here to debate or tell somebody they're wrong in their feelings. You're not wrong in what you're feeling, no matter what you're feeling. What I'm here to do is help you uncover what your feeling is and what the
I got
need
it.
is
I got
underneath
it.
it,
I
so
got it.
that you can, and also the act of what's been happening, whether it be COVID or the election or any other thing that's going on in the world. There's this idea that people outside of us control us, and that's not true. You may say, well, you don't know that. You haven't been in my shoes. And I'm going to say, okay, there might be situations where you think the circumstances directly, but here's where, and I've referenced this book before. I still probably should read it one day. But it's Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning. Okay. Jewish concentration camp survivor who was chained, beaten, left for dead, didn't die, but literally understood the idea, man's search for meaning, that they can beat me, they can kill my family, they can talk to me negatively, they can torture me, but I will not never give them my mind. I will never give them control over what I feel or what I think. I'm not giving my power away, even though in this red hot moment, anyone looking at me would say you're powerless. But the one area that no one can take from you without your permission is your internal dialogue, your
Hmm.
internal, and that's the
Yeah.
whole Viktor Frankl man's search for meaning. So let's talk about when we are in a victim mentality of thinking, and you can be a victim of something, but it's whether or not you treat yourself in the world or in any situation as a victim, meaning that other people directly will always somehow have more power over you than you do.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about abortion with just this very overview concept of that the people who are fighting about abortion laws or abortion in general, the two camps are not talking about the same thing. They're not fighting for the same thing. And I just want to make sure that's really clear. Same thing with, well, COVID's going to be a little bit more similar, but different, similar and the same. So someone that's pro-choice is most likely Christian, or maybe not Christian, but they believe that human life is a gift and that it comes from God. And again, this could be, if you're pro-life and I'm not saying the right things, then please correct me. I'm just trying to say from what I think that position might be, that I'm pro-choice. No, I'm pro-life. I'm pro-life, and pro-life means that life is given from God, and that we, no matter how it comes here, we honor this life because it's from God and it wanted to come forward, and we protect it at all costs. And this is the highest power potentially in the world. That
and
is a
and life is created at conception. That is a pro life stance. At conception, life is created. So
so
everything
these are
that
the beliefs of someone who
right,
is
right,
pro-life.
right, right. And again, I'm not diminishing their belief system at all, but I think that is what they are connected to. That life begins at conception, and maybe even there's some that say I don't believe in contraception at all. So I think that life even begins as a connection between man and woman. What is their intention? So an intention is is contraception involved in the intention of getting pregnant also? I don't know. It's part of maybe it's part of pro-life. I don't know for sure.
Right. So from this position of pro-life, it's really about the baby and the life of a child or an unborn child. So that's what they're fighting for. Flip over to pro-choice, and it's a woman who's fighting for the right to choose, that someone doesn't have power over me to choose what is right for my body. But as a woman, I'm fighting for my right to choose, separate probably at all, like a right to choose whatever I want to do with my body. It's my body. I get to choose it. But do you understand how they're not the same fight?
Yeah, yeah. It's you're in one you're dealing with the rights of the child, and the other you're dealing with the rights of the mother.
And the belief systems, the dominant belief system, in my guess, in pro-life has to do with God and some kind of birthing order of how conception and a child and a life is revered. And in pro-life or pro-choice, we're looking at the woman and the woman's right to choose. There's a different, so I'm hoping this is clear.
Right. The difference perspective is it the rights of the child that are that are more important than the rights of the mother, and in the other case, in pro-choice, is it's the rights of the mother that supersede the rights of the unborn child.
The common thread, though, is that we have different beliefs.
I got it.
So when you have a different set of belief systems, you're not talking about this. You're everyone, and this happens across the board with, doesn't matter what the situation is, without finding out how someone looks at the world or what they value, what's important to them, you're not having the same conversation and you're in disagreement. You're in disagreement about two completely different things. Yes, they intersect because this is the conversation. That's why there are two sides of an issue, but the issue isn't one issue. The issue is two issues. And then we have the issue of we're trying to make sense of and come to terms with passing a law or having a majority decide on something where there are completely different belief systems. And so and I don't have a solution. I'm just wanting to point this out in this situation. Now let's move to COVID. So
The Venn diagram in this particular case, pro-life versus pro-choice, does not overlap. There is no overlap because in one case you're dealing with the life of the
right.
child, the other case you're dealing with the life of the mother. There is no overlap, and if there was overlap, it's just health is in the middle. No person, no specific person, unborn child or mother. So very difficult to make a decision based upon the rights of the child or the mother when you're not talking from the same perspective.
Right. We're battling beliefs. That's like
I,
saying that's like battling religions. Really.
Right. I don't think that anyone that is pro-life is saying the mother's life is not important. What they're saying is what's more important is the life of the child. And in the pro-choice, it's the life of the mother is more important. They're not saying the child's life is not important. They're not pro-abortion, they're pro-choice. And so the mother's life overrides the child's life in this case. The mother's choice of freedom of making her own decisions, freedom of her own health, freedom of selecting what she wants to as the outcome, that's up to her in pro-choice. It's not up to her in pro-life. And that's where our disagreement is.
Right. And because we're trying to make some kind of middle ground with two completely different beliefs. It's like saying, I'm going to take Catholicism and Judaism and I'm going to put them together and we're going to decide things together about things we have in common based on our different belief systems about religion and God and the world and temple and synagogue and all the things, right? Well, that's why we keep it separate.
Well, it's very hard to make a decision together as a Catholic or as a Jew when one is reading from the Old Testament and one is reading from the New Testament. It's very challenging when you're being taught and you're listening and you're learning from different documents completely. How do we overlap this? It's very, very challenging. And again, another area where it's hard when you're dealing with religion to say who's right. Well, there is no right. It's whose perspective are you looking at?
Right. And that's kind of the overview here. So let's use one more example of COVID. Let's take vaccinated and unvaccinated. So people that were pro-vaccines saw a vaccine as a way to protect themselves and were afraid that someone that didn't do it somehow would possibly endanger them.
Yeah.
So they had fear. Now, in reverse, kind of like abortion, people who are unvaccinated said, vaccinated people, get vaccinated. We don't care. But don't tell me what to do because I'm not putting that stuff in my body because it's my body and I get to decide whether or not I want to take a risk of something that's unproven and doesn't necessarily work and potentially could even be fatal for me, which it's been fatal for millions of people. So the fear and the anger coming from unvaccinated is because of the pressure of not having any choice. So it's almost like the unvaccinated were like pro-life or pro-choice, and the vaccinated were like pro-choice, pro-life, right? It's like we were fighting for the right to choose, and the other camp was fighting for their health, thinking that believing something that was basically unproven also, but believing because the government told you that this is what you had to do. And therefore, but you were afraid because this is what you believed. You believed that if someone didn't get it, they would somehow make you sick, which, okay, we're talking, everyone has fear. Everyone has anger. Everyone's feeling powerless. That's the bottom line here. It's feeling powerless. And if you've been listening to me for a while, and if you're not, if you're on YouTube, I teach law of attraction and quantum physics, and I go way more above than all the mess we're dealing with right now, because quantum physics is the umbrella that affects everything underneath it, including your biology, your physiology, and everything else. Because the vibration and frequency that, and the belief system that you operate around is the colored glasses you're looking through, is how you see the world, where someone would see one scenario with, let's say, one colored glass from one religion or one point of view and look at that thing and say, that's amazing. And then someone from a different religion or different point of view and different belief system looking at the same thing would go, that's horrific. So, all to say that regardless of what side you're on for anything ever, it's all contrast to bring you back to what's going on for you. Mm-hmm. And what power are you giving away to entities such as the government or Western medicine or your neighbors to affect you? If you understand quantum physics, and again, this is not going to be for everybody. Mm-hmm. If you're finding me on YouTube and you're new to me, you're not going to like this probably because you don't understand. And now this is where the spirituality comes into reality. If you actually believe if you understand the science of quantum physics, this is a science. We live at the frequency at which we attract and we experience the frequency that we're in.
Well, aren't we? And again, you've said this to me many times, and I hear this all the time in my head now that I have the words and the phrase around it. And I know this is a common phrase. You know, we are the creator of our own reality. So whatever comes in, you have this filter that you're running it through, and then you interpret a feeling, and that feeling will result in whatever action that you have or whatever emotion that you're feeling. So absolutely, we receive it. It's up to us how we interpret it, though.
Right. The government, for the longest time, there were years I didn't vote. And then there were years where I couldn't tell you who, like what party was in the office. I mean, I probably knew, but I couldn't tell you based on anything in my life at the time, whether it be because I didn't own property. I did have a business, but I've been self-employed. So my taxes are really based on what I spend and what I can write off and how much I make and what bracket I'm in. And so I never really saw how the government affected my day-to-day life because
run that through the filter called tax law. And that's where you interpret what your taxes are. I mean, that's the reality of whoever is in office is in control of that, and whatever changes that they make or lack of changes that they make, they're in control of that. And it's up to us how we interpret that and what we can do to help offset those things. You know, there's always, I'm not saying there's always a workaround, but there's always opportunity.
No, there really isn't always a workaround. There really always is a workaround, and sometimes it's vibrational. So I am going to, in full transparency, there's this site that I have had for years, like 20 years, where I upload audios. And many of you, if you've worked with me, have experienced being able to download something from this site. Somehow, I don't know if a credit card expired or I never got a bill. I never got a notice. It said that I was default. Anyway, I went in to go get something like 2 months ago and it was closed. And I'm like, what? And now I don't have access to it. However, I know and trust that in this office, in my car, somewhere there is an Abraham CD that I have made with 5 different political Abrahams on it. It's awesome. And I want to gift it to all of you, and I'm going to find it. So when you hear this, it's going to be jjflizanes.com/politics. And that's going to be how you're going to sign up and let me know you want it. You get to a page that has it, awesome, download it. And if it's not there yet, I'm going to move heaven and earth to find it, to give you these audios.
She will need to move heaven and earth. I've seen her office and you may need to wait a little while.
It really is going to be moving everything in my office. But I promise, I know I've seen the Abraham CD that I created with these audio files on them that I now can then take and gift to you to listen to why politics is outside the vortex anyway. politics is a step one process. All it does is get you excited about the contrast. What's the problem? That's all we focus is on problem. You think it's solution based, but it's really not, because the frequency of the solution is different than the frequency of the problem. And again, here's where you are challenged to actually live what you say you believe. If you know about law of attraction and quantum physics, you actually understand frequency. You understand that if you want to listen to 102.7 on your radio, you cannot turn it to 102.9. You understand that. If you want to hear this podcast, you can't do it on someone else's channel. If you want to watch this YouTube, you can't do it on somebody else's YouTube. If you want to watch something on Netflix, you can't watch it on Hulu. You understand frequency. You just forget it when you get triggered. And you're triggered because you have needs and wounds. I'm not going to get into the wounds, but I'm going to get into the needs. So what do we do in this situation? When I've given my power away. I've given my power away to politics. I've given my power away to candidates and ideas. They're ideas. They're not even reality yet. And They might never will be. But you've given all of your energy away. Your power away. You have chosen to be powerless because you want to have hope, because you want to have protection, because you want to feel safe. So if you have never downloaded my feelings and needs list, let me give you a crash course right now. Because no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, no matter if you're happy or you're sad about what has happened, and you've given your power away completely, whether you're happy or you're sad, because even if you're happy, you might be sad tomorrow. And even if you're sad today, you might be happy in a week or month from now. You don't know. But all you know is that you feel terrible. You feel wrecked. Why? Because you have a need. And your need is probably, this is going to be different across the board. Some of you are going to have a need for safety. That's a big one that I can feel. Some of you are going to have a need for trust. That's another big one that I feel. Some of you have a need for hope, and now you feel hopeless. Some of you have a need for, to be seen and heard, and to be known and known. And now you feel like you are not understood. You are not known. You felt like this was a slap in your face and nobody cares about you. You have decided to make that mean that when it doesn't, because of your wounds, which we can't get that deep into this conversation today. But here's how do you do something about it? So regardless, because even if, let's say, the politician that you wanted to win or whatever, and because let's be honest, what politician has ever done all the things that they say they're going to do? Nobody. Okay. The whole system is corrupt and it's so all of it. But we have this hope because we want to believe that someone is on our side. And I'm here to say, source is on your side. Source energy, God, the universe is on your side. Don't give this to humans. Do not give it to the political system or to the people, because they might fail you every time, and not because they're trying to fail you, but because they have their own stuff going on. So we have to bring it back into what we can control, because you have zero control. Even if everything would have worked out the exact way that you wanted it to, you still have zero control about what happens every single day moving forward, and how people react to it, how they respond to it, and if the people change their mind. So instead of the cycle of feeling so hopeless and disappointed and angry and frustrated and feeling because you've made something mean something that it doesn't necessarily mean. So the feelings and needs list. Step one, what am I feeling? Identify that. Be clear about what you're feeling. Well, I can tell you what most of you are feeling. You're feeling angry. You're feeling hopeless. You're feeling vulnerable. You're feeling hurt. You're feeling heavy. You're feeling gloomy. You're feeling uneasy and perplexed and torn. And more than, you're enraged, you're scared, you're nervous, you're fearful, you're worried, you are everything on the negative list. Okay, that's what you're feeling. And some of you are not all of those things. Some of you are one of those things. Some of you are 10 of those things. So figure out what you're feeling and then move to what needs are not being met. What needs are you not having met that you are hoping the government is going to swing in and give to you without you doing anything about it, or with you trying to convince billions of people to change their beliefs and attitudes so that you can feel better? Please answer me that. You have to take control over what you can do to get your needs met. You cannot, and it's not because you're distrustful. It's because you're given the tools and energy inside of you right now. Trust source, trust your God, trust your higher power, trust the universe, trust, I don't know, find somebody, something that you trust. Trust yourself. Trust yourself.
I trust my cats. Very good.
Well, we trust them most of the time. We don't trust
Most of
them
the
all the
time.
time.
That's right.
Right. So, step one, what am I feeling? Step two, what need is not being met that's creating this feeling? So, if you have a need for safety, okay, figure out, well, how can I feel more safe? I've heard people say they're going to move out of the country. Okay, if that makes you feel more safe. But here's the thing about healing, healing is when you're different in the same situation. When you give your power away to everybody else and then you decide to just cut everybody off, that's not healing. And that's not actually getting your need met because your need isn't about that person. Your need is about you.
What's going to happen when you move to Canada or Mexico or wherever you're going to move to, and then there's a set of rules that you don't want to follow there or that take away your freedoms? Are you going to move again? I mean, it just seems to be. I know it's just everybody says, "Oh, I'm going to move to Canada." Are you really going to move to Canada? Can't we come up with a better solution than that? Isn't there possible?
If moving makes you feel safe, then do it. That's what you have to decide for yourself. But I'm saying if you don't identify what's really going on for you because you're caught in the collective momentum bubble of what's going on in the world, then you're never going to be happy and nothing is ever going to
Hmm.
satisfy you because you're not taking control over what you can do for yourself
Yeah.
and how you can continue to. So I have a client, Vesta, shout out to Vesta. She just did a summit
Whoop,
this
whoop.
last week, did her second summit, Power of Choosing You, which was awesome. And we talked about on her summit, like my session was basically like a little bit of a coaching session, but using her situation as an example. She was at a new job and there were 8 trucks that got their windows busted. So
Ooh.
when she came out of work, 7 people had already known that their truck's windows were busted, and Vesta did not. So she came out and she's take a shuttle, I think, to get to the parking lot, and she finds her new truck with the windows busted. And and it made her angry and sad and afraid. And then she went to and she claimed her anger and she went to the parking garage or to the hospital that she's working in and whoever was in charge to say, you need cameras, you need da da da, like this is unsafe. And they listened and they took action and they wanted to provide. However, I did say to her, well, what would have happened if they didn't? Because if you're parking in a situation that is proven to be unsafe, you took the right action to ask for what you needed, and they said no. Can you keep blaming them? No, at some point you have to make decisions to protect yourself and say, well, what are my other options? Maybe I park somewhere else. Maybe I Uber to work. Maybe I take a bus to work. Maybe I have someone pick me up. Whatever the case may be, you have to find another strategy. So after you figure out what your need is, your real need, and the need can't be that this person or that person or the government or the world has to change. You can't ask. It's impossible. It's so impossible. You have to decide that how am I going to get my needs met and get creative. So step three, and this list, by the way, is at jjflazanes.com/feelings list. If you don't have it, you need it. Everyone needs this list right now. Everyone needs to look at this list and figure out what needs you're not getting met that you magically think the government, whether you're happy or not about what happened, because even if you're happy about what happened, you're still not going to get everything you want either. So it doesn't, so you better start taking your power back from everybody that you've given it away to and own your shit to say, you literally can't trust anybody, not in a bad way, but you can't lay that on someone else to say, it's your job to make me feel safe. It's
Mhm.
nobody's job to make you feel anything, ever, literally. So please, jjflazanes.com/feelings list. Get this list. Circle your needs. Get to know your needs. Step 3 of the process is to create strategies, more than one, preferably 2 or 3, to get your needs met that do not require anyone else to be different. So let me tell you what I did during COVID. So with the fears that came up from now, first of all, I love living in Ojai. We have fruit trees. We planted a tower garden with vegetables. We don't have it yet, but I want to get a generator. Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to get a wood burning stove. Like I'm going to make us able to be off the grid because I don't want to trust any government agency because who the hell knows what could happen. And I'm
I
not
do
doing
need my Netflix though, so we might have to have cable.
again, if all power goes out, hun, no one's having cable. Okay.
That's
So
true.
it's just this understanding of survival when it's questioned and being able to figure out, well, what I need to be safe and what's possible. Now,
Good to
this
plan.
isn't
It makes you do take back your power when you do some planning like that. You do. It's simple to do, and it's not that much of a challenge to jump through that hoop.
No, and I'm not trying to come from like a paranoid, like I knew people
Right.
who've been paranoid for years, who are digging holes and making basements and, and having the canoe and getting ready to like swim if there's a
Hey, we
whatever.
live right next door to the perfect person. Lots of guns and lots of food.
Right. So, well, we got plenty of food too, but it's the idea of, oh, then maybe we need to figure out another thing for if the power goes out, all the freezers are going to go out,
No,
which
the
that,
generator will work. That
okay.
generator will help us
All right.
fix that problem.
Okay. But so here's where, how do you take your power back? How do you get your needs met? And yeah, are some of them going to be extreme? Possibly. But are you really going to put all of the power in someone else's hands that you don't trust or that you don't trust? So, you know, do what is right for you, but have a plan, figure out a strategy. And so that step 3 process of the strategy is, how do I get my needs met? What are the strategies to get my needs met that do not require anyone else to be different? That is the most important part of this, because the minute you give the power to someone else, you're done. You will be a victim you will be unhappy, frustrated, always disappointed, never feeling good, never
True.
feeling excited or empowered, because you can't, from the position of it, someone else controls you. It just can't happen. And maybe pick up Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning. I have it. I have like 3 copies. Haven't read it. I probably should read it. Maybe it's on audiobook, but I get the gist. I don't need to read it. I understand. Someone who could claim, look at me, I'm a victim, but learned a lesson that he shared with the entire world, that his whole point, like, this was so uplifting, and a man's search for meaning. I mean, can you get any deeper than that? Can you get
I'm just
any?
curious. You said you have 3 copies. Did you lose the other 2 and you had to keep ordering it? And that's why, but you still haven't
No,
read it yet? It just
I think what happened is that I would like walk around and see it in different places and then
got it.
pick it up. I don't think I ever ordered it from Amazon. I think I
I,
bought them when I used to go to bookstores. Remember that?
yeah, yeah. I think I did that with the your love languages. I left them all around the house so that my ex-wife could find the love languages book. Didn't work for me there. There's no getting that book through osmosis. You actually have to read the pages of the book. I'm thinking maybe we should pick up and read the Viktor Frankl book, because I think it's a good idea. But
Okay, let's do it.
I appreciate what you're saying though.
No, let's do it. I would love to do that with you. It would keep me accountable to doing it.
Okay, I'm in.
Great. Okay, cool. So now let's pull this whole concept into pivoting in your life. And so Doug's situation with his second wife, which was that he didn't know or realize or want that marriage to end, and was shocked and floored when
Couldn't get
she
it back
left.
together. Couldn't get it
What?
back together. I think we knew that it was disintegrating. It was the fact that I couldn't get it back together. That was the essential component to me. That was where the heartbreak began, when I knew I could not solve the problem.
Right. And so, of course, your pivot was me. Um,
My
your pivot,
rebound pivot.
your rebound pivot was me. And then, months later, you moved from Baltimore to California, and you've been here ever since. And I don't
Yeah,
know.
living my best life. I love it here.
Right. But it wouldn't have happened without the heartbreak of the pivot.
No, I needed that. I needed that. I hate to say that, because it hurt so much for years. There was a lot of heartache, pain, anxiety, all of that. But without that, I wouldn't have discovered this repeating problem that I have in my life. And so I needed this to happen the way that it did in order for me to get to where I am now.
Yeah. So I was just on a call with one of my clients, shout out to Jane, and I came up with a new thing. It was outlining sort of the circuit. So in my Rewire course and the core wound map that I've created, the first section of a map is extracting the data from the exercise to see what your circuit is, your core wound circuitry is. So that means when you get triggered, when a core wound gets triggered, you immediately, and again, this could be subconscious. You don't even know it's happening. You're not consciously choosing to get triggered,
Right.
right?
Right.
Everyone right now is being triggered. And everyone right now isn't consciously choosing to be triggered. Everyone who's triggered is triggered
Mm-hmm.
because a wound has been hit. And then and it's a big one, because there's a fear, a deep, deep fear, whether it be, and it's definitely part of your core wounds, and it's in relationship to, because I bet you if we surveyed 100 people that feel the same way, their reasons for feeling the same way would be different, right? Like the wound and the way they make sense of it might be very different.
Yeah, agreed.
So when we're looking at, so your circuit is that you get triggered and then you have a feeling, And then from the feeling, you have a reaction. Well, in the law of attraction circuit, if you will, it's that we are in alignment, feeling good, contrast. Okay, contrast is that thing that happens that you don't like, that feels bad, that is a big blow up, that is, right? That's contrast. Now, the reason why for most people, many people, law of attraction doesn't work the way that it could for them is because you get stuck in the contrast, then you make the contrast mean something and you never get out of the contrast. When you use the contrast to create clarity, then from clarity, there's creation. So let me give this as an example for me. So I was working with a client of mine. There's been little rumblings in my head over the years about, am I missing something? Is there another level to this about some of my programs or what I do when I have groups? And it started back when, like, I can see the evidence of it now, but it's taken me this long to kind of embody it. So do you remember my 2019 manifestation boot camp? That was when Rhonda had come to the event, our neighbor Rhonda.
Yeah.
And Rhonda's middle child, her second daughter, I think had Lyme disease and had been struggling and really going downhill for a really long time. And prior to that event, I was reading Mind to Matter from Dawson Church, and it was talking about the science of energy healing and distance healing. And when we got to the event, and it was a touchy thing for me because I had a healer there, a friend of mine. And so I didn't want to step on her toes, but there was such a strong impulse in me to do this that I said, Rhonda, come. It was not in the schedule. I was actually trying not to do it, but it overtook me so much. And I said, Rhonda, come here. She laid on the floor and we all gathered around her with our hands above her, literally in a prayer circle, intending for her and her daughter to feel the healing love energy that we were sending. I don't know how long we stayed there, but it was a little while. It was definitely more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then after that, her daughter made a huge change and shift and recovery for a really long time. Now, I don't know how she's doing now. I know she's still alive, but I know it lasted. Like, she was doing things that were magical. And I remember feeling really good about that, but not making that something that I put on myself. Like, it was and it was only because Rhonda was our neighbor and because we knew Sky Rose and we were so close to the situation that I just felt like I had to do something. I listened to my impulse and I followed it and we did it. Fast forward, in this year's Date Your Body, Miss Julie had neuropathy in her lower legs and didn't have any feeling. Now, we didn't really do a circle, so to speak, but I know all of us were sending her positive energy and love. And I know we all visualized, without me asking to do it, that she would be healing because she'd just come on every day and tell us some new miracle that had happened, some new feeling that she had, some revelation, some change in her physicality. And I created this heart chi balance exercise of moving energy from your heart into different parts of your body. And she started to feel her legs more. And then she came to the live event where I asked the entire room to send her some loving energy. And she was driving. She started to drive because she has feeling in her legs now and she couldn't drive before. So all that to say, so now I'm working with a client who she got a speaking role for me and for herself at a local Ventura Women in Business event. 100 people there. And I said, this is Karen. Shout out to Karen. I'm going to give Karen complete credit for this idea because she didn't give me the idea. It was her idea for her. And then, like, I don't know, an hour later, it hit me so hard. I'm like, oh my God, I need to do that. So she was speaking and I was helping her design her talk to speak and what she wanted to do with that talk. And Karen is a master of goddess circles. She's in a bunch. She runs a bunch of them. So of course she's moving to Ventura from LA. And I was like, okay, you're going to do goddess circles. So let's say, what kind of goddess circle? How can we kind of pull this together? And she said, well, the power of 8 can manifest anything. And I said, she goes, you know that book, right? I said, what book? The Power of 8. I said, I don't know that book. So I look it up. I buy it. It's Lynn McTaggart, who was supposed to be on the Consciousness Upgrade Summit, who also wrote The Field. And so I'm like, I bought the book. I get the book. I said, great, Karen, you're going to do that. You're going to do Feminine Power of 8 or whatever, Goddess Power of 8 groups. And so I get off the call with her and again, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh my God. And then those visions of the 2019 Manifestation Bootcamp and then with Julie. And then I'm like, and this feeling that I get that I'm not utilizing the power of the groups, especially the mastermind, in the best way to channel energy. It almost happened this year with the mastermind when Jane was talking about selling her house. And I immediately went and started doing affirmations with them. So we all affirmed together and we all collectively used that positive energy. But we didn't necessarily channel it to her for her house. But after those affirmations, she had a hit on the house. So I saw the power of the energy giving us an example of how it was working, but I still didn't follow through with it completely, right? So for me, the pivot is, and what I wanted to share with all of you in terms of, sometimes the thing that's heartbreaking, the thing that you didn't expect, the thing that really tips you over, that makes you go, oh my God, what am I going to do now? That's contrast. And when you're there, what's next is taking that and making that into clarity. Now, for you on an individual level, it might be the feelings and needs list about what's going on in the world right now or ever, but it's also allowing that clarity to go to birth. We're here to birth things. We're here to use our creative energy. It's our life force. We're here to birth things. And I have now birthed something new. And I'm sharing it with you here. And the invitation is here. And the spots are maybe limited. There might be 4 spots left. But I am doing an inner circle power of 8 starting in January. It is 8 months. And how it's different is what I just laid out about this collective energy. Lynn McTaggart, hopefully, will be on the show next week to talk about the power of 8. So you're going to hear even more in depth about the exact stuff. But if you just think about 8 people channeling, and so she did a bunch of studies. They took so many studies, so many groups online, not necessarily in person, although they did in-person stuff too, where people came together and had intentions experiments about, they tested flowers, they worked with people and healings, magnificent healings with people, babies. And anyway, it's very extensive and I'll let her explain that next week. And you can buy the book, Power of 8, and you can look it up. But it's this idea that I would like to take this collective meeting energy that we have twice a month and use it to help all of us manifest, to focus on our zone of genius, to get out of our way, to help us heal, to help elevate us. And so anyway, I'm very excited about the Power of 8. There is a curriculum, there is lessons, there are books to read and things to do. And every meeting will incorporate a level of healing directed at a few people in the group each time. Can't do everybody every time. Otherwise, that's all we're going to do. But so those people who are in business or want to start a business, it's open for everybody. It doesn't have to be about business, but we are going to focus on, my keywords are amplifying manifestation and zone of genius. So those of you that are ready for the next level of law of attraction, healing, and ownership, which means you're going to have to create something. So, that's where the whole business thing came in, that I wanted everybody to move into like a business program. Whether you do it full-time or part-time is up to you, but and you don't have to make it a business, but what you are called to do in this lifetime on this earth, why you are here physically focused in this body, is to create. It's to create. So what are you creating? And are you creating in your zone of genius? Do you even know what that is? And it's part of the Rewire the Zone of Genius piece, but we spend a month on it and then we move on to the next thing. We talk about it for the rest of the time, but this is going to be a focal point of this 8 months in the Power of 8. So that's my announcement. And like I said, I think there are 4 spots left. So you can go to jjfilzanes.com/power of 8. Yes, that is the 3rd link I've given you in the show today. They will all be in the description or in the show notes. But I want to make sure I gave you tools to deal with whatever you're going through right now, because to be in hopelessness and to be in, and I'm not saying don't feel your feelings, feel all your feelings. And then when you're done feeling your feelings, figure out how to get your needs met so you can stop being powerless, because it's not the truth of who you are. If you believe in a higher power, whether it be God, Source, Buddha, Jesus, I don't care what, the sun, if you believe in a higher power, then you know you're not alone. You know that we're all cut from the same cloth and we have different viewpoints and different opinions and different ways of looking at things. And ultimately, it's your job to get your needs met. And you're going to find other people that are going to help you do that. And some people that won't be interested in helping you do that because they have needs that conflict with yours. But it's not against you. It's just because they feel unsafe. You could take the same scenario of safety and the same situation could make one person feel safe. Astrologically, Doug's a Sag. I have a Sag moon and a Sag rising. Someone who's a Taurus, I love my Tauruses. Tauruses, I always say, are like, they love a box. They love a box. They want to know where everything is. They want to know where the endpoints are, because knowing where the endpoints are makes me feel safe. You talk to me about a box and I am running out the door down the street and far away, right? Do not box me in ever. So again, the idea of a box makes one group of people feel safe and it makes another group of people terrified. So I just want you to boil it down to what's really going on instead of the stories and the catastrophizing and the blame and the perpetuation of despair. And if you want to be there, be there. It's not my business. You can be there. I don't care. I'm not asking you to change for me. But if you want to feel better, if you want to find hope, if you want to find all the things that you want to find, you can. But you have to take responsibility for it and you have to do it. And you can ask for help and support. But I just wanted to share that all of this contrast, I promise you, in some way, shape, or form, is creating some opportunity for beauty, perfection, and for manifestation of what it is that you do want, but you have to be a part of the solution vibrationally. And you can do that without the government. You don't need the government to do that. You can want something and decide to collectively, and that's what we're going to do in the Power of Eight. We can collectively use our energy, our balanced, alchemized energy that we're going to set at the beginning of every meeting to focus on whatever, healing the planet. Okay. And we'll have more chance of healing the planet in that modality than the government ever will. So,
amen, sister, preach.
preaching. All right. So, Power of Eight, that's my invitation. Starts in January. It's 8 months. And it's kind of like a mastermind, but not. It doesn't have to be about business, but it is about creation. And you have to be
application process for somebody to go through that. So,
yep,
so
application
I would encourage everybody that is listening to this, if you have an inkling of interest to find out more and what this is all about, fill out the application. You'll have a conversation with JJ. You guys together will make a decision on whether that's the right move for you. Really safe bet to have that conversation with JJ. If that is not the program for you, there may be another one that would be even better equipped for you as well. So get in touch with JJ and she'll give you the links, put them in the show notes as well.
And please, as the last plea, if there is any exercise I teach that if I had to say, if I only had to learn one thing from you that would change my life, my relationships, my communication forever, what would it be? It would be the feelings and needs list. When you can empower yourself to get your own needs met. And I would also ask you all to, when you get this and when you download it, print 20 copies, put it everywhere. Circle the needs that aren't being met. Forget the situation. Forget politics. Forget your family. Forget your husband and wife and your work and your child. Just generally, just go circle all the needs that you have that aren't being met. And if you come up with so many needs that half this list are not being met, you're in a very vulnerable place to be triggered a lot by everything and everyone, because you are not getting your needs met and you don't know how, and clearly no one has taught you how to get your needs met, because you're probably waiting for everyone else to give you what you need without knowing it subconsciously, because that's kind of what people teach. That's what our families taught us. That's what schools taught us. Like, nobody teaches you about emotions. So really start to learn how to get your needs met, and you're going to feel amazing, and you're not going to give a shit what's going on in the government, because the government, again, politics is outside of the vortex. It is not in harmony at all, ever. So, and if I can find the Abrahams, go to jjfilzames.com/politics. Let me know you're interested in them. I promise I will find you as many as I can. I'm determined to restore that audio acrobat and to get all of them so that you can hear and understand that you're on the right track when you're trying to feel better, no matter what that means for you. And that when you're in alignment, you are more powerful. One person in alignment is more powerful than millions that aren't. Take your power back. Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome. Thank you.